You click because you've seen that screen. The one that lights up in the middle of a field, engine still warm, and tells you the machine you own will not move another inch until a dealer says so. I stood on the other side of that screen for years. I was the man who told you the bill. Here's the truth I signed my name to for a paycheck. You did not buy that tractor. You bought the steel and the diesel and the seat. The part that actually makes it run, the software, the codes, the locks, that was never yours, and every person in my building knew it. I sat inside a John Deere dealership service department, and I watched us turn a busted sensor into a four-figure invoice more times than I can count. I'm going to walk you through exactly how the trap was built, why a federal lawsuit filed in January of 2025 finally put it in writing, and one thing you can do this week to take your own iron back, even if it's already locked down in your shop right now. Stay with me, because the last part is the part they never wanted you to hear. Let me start with the moment I stopped being able to sleep. It was a Tuesday in the middle of harvest. A grower I'd known for 15 years hauled his combine in on a lowboy because a mass of wires the size of your fist had thrown a code. The actual failure was a $15 sensor. The machine wasn't broken. It was insulted. It had detected a part it didn't like, and it grounded itself on purpose. He couldn't clear that code. I couldn't hand him the tool to clear it. Only our shop had the software that could reach in and tell the tractor, everything's fine, go back to work. We charged him a service call, a diagnostic fee, shop time, and the sensor was $15. The invoice was over $700. And the whole time I'm writing it up, he's standing there watching his beans sit in a field with rain coming, losing money by the hour, and thanking me for fitting him in. Thanking me, that's the part that got under my skin. He was grateful to the people holding his harvest hostage. Now here's what I want you to understand, because this is where the first layer peels back. That combine did not need a genius to fix it. It needed permission, and permission was the only thing we were actually selling. Somewhere along the way, the company figured out that steel wears out and gets cheap, but permission, you can sell that same permission over and over for the life of the machine, and the customer can never build it, borrow it, or buy it anywhere else. The tool that grants that permission is called Service Advisor. It's the dealer diagnostic software, and for years the full professional version was locked behind the dealership door. It reads the machine, talks to the controllers, and clears the faults. Independent mechanics couldn't get the real thing. Your neighbor who's been fixing engines for 40 years couldn't get it. I had it because I wore the badge, and that badge was worth more than any wrench in the building. So the first thing I need you to sit with is simple and ugly. Someone profited from your trust. You trusted that a machine you paid $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for was yours to fix. That trust was the product, but that's just the front counter. The real machine was built somewhere you never got to see, and once I show you how, you're going to be angry you paid for it. Because a lock screen in a field doesn't happen by accident. Somebody had to make it legal. Here's where it goes from a business decision to something that should never have been allowed. The lock on your tractor is protected by a copyright law written in 1998, back when almost nobody was thinking about farm equipment. It's called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and there's a piece of it, Section 1201, that makes it illegal to break a digital lock that protects copyrighted software. That law was written to stop people from pirating movies and music, but your tractor runs on software, so the company argued that when you try to repair around the lock, you're not fixing a tractor, you're cracking copyrighted code, like you're bootlegging a film. I want you to really hear how far they took this. In 2015, during a review at the United States Copyright Office, John Deere filed comments arguing that farmers don't actually own their tractors in the way you think. Their position was that you receive an implied license to operate the vehicle for its life. An implied license. Read that again. Their own lawyers put it in writing that you're a licensee, not an owner, of the thing sitting in your machine shed. You bought a license to drive it, in their telling, the same way you don't own the movie on the disc. That was the moment the mask slipped, and almost no farmer in America ever saw that document. I did, because we were told how to talk about it. We were coached to say things like, it protects emissions, compliance, it protects safety, it protects you from making a mistake. Every one of those lines was designed to make the cage feel like a seatbelt. And once the software was legally untouchable, the rest fell into place fast. The company could decide which parts the machine would accept. They could pair a part to a specific tractor so that even a genuine brand new component wouldn't work until it was electronically married to that machine by a dealer. We called it parts pairing. You'd bolt on the correct part, the exact right part, and the machine would still refuse it until we plugged in and blessed it. That's not safety, that's a toll booth. Now think about what that does to a repair. Before all this, a broken machine meant a trip to the parts counter and a weekend in the shop. After this, a broken machine means a phone call, a wait, a flatbed, a service window that might be days out in the busy season, and an invoice you can't predict. I watched the average repair stretch from an afternoon into a week. During planting and harvest, a week is the difference between a good year and a loan. The Consumer Research Group US, PERG, has been hammering on this for years, documenting how repair restrictions cost farmers real money and real time, how downtime during a narrow harvest window can run into the thousands per day for a big operation. I didn't need their report to believe it. I wrote the invoices that proved it. So now you understand the second layer. This wasn't one greedy dealership. The lock was engineered on purpose, defended by lawyers, and dressed up as protection. Someone didn't just profit from your trust. They built a legal wall around it so you couldn't climb out. But here's the question that kept me up at night. If this was so obviously rigged, why did the people who are supposed to speak for farmers go along with it? That answer is the ugliest part of the whole story, and it has a date on it. January 8th, 2023. Write that date down. That's the day the American Farm Bureau Federation signed a memorandum of understanding with John Deere. It was announced with handshakes and press releases, and the headline everywhere was that farmers had won the right to repair their own equipment. Peace in our time. The fight was over. Everybody go home. I remember the mood at work when that came down. Relief, mostly. We figured the pressure was off. And when I finally sat and read what that memorandum actually said, I understood why my bosses were relieved. It gave away almost nothing. A memorandum of understanding is not a law. It's a promise between two organizations, and this one had no teeth. It didn't force anything you could take to court as a farmer. Deere agreed to make tools and documentation available, but on Deere's terms and at Deere's prices. And here's the kicker buried in the fine print. The Farm Bureau agreed not to support right to repair legislation. Read that slowly. In exchange for a voluntary promise, the biggest farm lobby in the country agreed to stand down from pushing actual laws that would have real force. That's the layer that made me quit. They didn't just build the trap and defend it with copyright law. They sat down with the organization that's supposed to fight for you, and they got that organization to call off the fight. They wrote the terms, and they got the people you trusted to bless those terms in your name, and most farmers I knew genuinely believed they'd won something that day. Groups like the Repair Association, led by advocates who'd been in this fight for years, said out loud what I could only think quietly. A voluntary promise with no enforcement is worth exactly as much as the company decides it's worth on any given morning. If Deere wanted to slow walk it, water it down, or price the tools out of reach, who was going to stop them? Not a memorandum. Not a lobby that just promised to sit down. Before I hand you the last two moves, I want to give you the thing that ties all of this together into a plan you can actually follow. Picture yourself out there next season. A code lights up that warm screen again, and this time your hand doesn't reach for the phone to call the dealer. It reaches for a laptop, a cable, and a plan you already know by heart. That is exactly what I built, the complete iron furrow system, to hand you. It's an instant download you read tonight, and it lays out the ownership myth exposed, showing you what your license agreement actually lets Deere control, then ranks 5 real cash recovery moves by return and by the honest effort each one takes. It gives you a 12-month field map from the shock of that invoice all the way to running your own repairs, and it's honest with you about what real year 1 independence looks like versus the fantasy version. The second volume walks you into year 2 control, 5 concrete alternatives with their real barriers and documented savings, laid out in the exact order of operations, because sequence matters more than speed. And there's an exclusive third volume on machine-independent operation you won't find anywhere else. Every volume stands on its own as an action plan, and together the bundle is the complete field manual. Here's your free proof, and you can do it tonight without spending a dime. Pull up that customer-facing diagnostic subscription I just told you about and confirm for yourself that Deere sells an owner version that reads codes and finds the failure. No dealer required. That one search will tell you whether I'm shooting straight before you ever open your wallet. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And this matters now no matter when you're watching, because every locked repair you're still paying a dealer for is money bleeding out of this season's operation, and that cost is running whether you act or not. Now, let me give you that fourth move, because it's the one with real legal muscle behind it. And sure enough, the tools that came available still carried subscription costs and hardware costs that put them out of reach for a lot of smaller operations. The lock didn't disappear. It just got a nicer brochure. So I want to be honest with you about where that leaves you. If you're sitting at home right now with a machine in the shed that you already feel trapped inside, because up to now I've been telling you how the cage was built, this next part is for you specifically, the owner who's thinking, that's fine, but I already own the thing, I'm stuck, this video is for people shopping for their next tractor. No, this part is built for you, the person who's already locked in. Lean in, because there are moves on the board right now that I watched the company hope you'd never learn. The first move is the simplest, and it's the one that quietly terrifies a dealership. You can buy the diagnostic capability yourself. Under the pressure of all this fighting, Deere put out a customer-facing version of its diagnostic software, a subscription product aimed at owners, not just dealers. Most farmers have no idea it exists because nobody at the counter is going to volunteer it. It reads codes, it helps you find the failure, and it takes away the mystery that let us charge you a diagnostic fee just to tell you what was wrong. Pair that with an electronic data link cable, the connector that plugs your laptop into the machine, and third parties sell those for a fraction of what the dealer setup costs. Suddenly you're the one holding the flashlight instead of standing in the dark waiting for us. The second move is documentation. Operator and technical manuals for a huge number of machines are available for purchase, and you have the right to have the repair information for the equipment you own. When I was inside, the number of owners who tore into a repair confidently just because they had the real service manual in their hands instead of a forum guess told me everything. Information alone shrinks the invoice. A man who knows the procedure doesn't pay for the mystery. The third move is the one that changed everything for the guys who are tired of waiting. There's an entire underground of owners who figured out years ago that if the company wouldn't give them access, someone else would. Reporters at Motherboard documented back in 2017 that American farmers were buying bootleg firmware, some of it traced to hacker forums in Eastern Europe and Ukraine, just so they could clear their own error codes and keep running during harvest instead of waiting on a dealer. Think about the desperation in that. American farmers on American soil downloading cracked software from across the world because their own manufacturer treated a fault code like a state secret. I'm not telling you to break a law. I'm telling you that when honest people start doing that, it's proof the system is the thing that's broken, not the farmer. And the fourth move is the one with real legal muscle behind it, but it depends on where you stand. So here's the map. Colorado did what the Farm Bureau memorandum refused to do. In 2023, Colorado passed House Bill 23-1011, the first agricultural right to repair law in the country, signed by the governor and taken effect on the first day of 2024. It legally requires manufacturers to give farmers and independent shops the tools, the parts, the software, and the documentation to fix their own equipment. Not a promise, a law with the state behind it. If you farm in a state that has passed one of these, you already have leverage the dealer does not want you to exercise. And if your state hasn't, that bill is the template that advocates are carrying capital to capital right now. So no, you are not stuck. You are underinformed on purpose. Every one of those moves takes back a piece of the permission we used to sell you. But even all four of those put together aren't the thing I really came here to give you. Because there's one development that finally put the whole scheme on the record in a federal courtroom, and it hands you something no memorandum ever could. Here's the finale, and it's the piece I wish every farmer in America had taped to the wall of their shop. On January 15th, 2025, the Federal Trade Commission did something that changes the ground under this entire fight. The FTC, joined by the Attorneys General of Illinois and Minnesota, filed a lawsuit against John Deere in federal court in the Northern District of Illinois. Not a memorandum, not a voluntary promise, a federal enforcement action alleging that Deere unlawfully restricted the ability of farmers and independent repair shops to fix Deere equipment, forcing them into the dealer network and driving up the cost of repairs. Sit with what that means. The nation's top competition regulator looked at the exact machine I helped run, the diagnostic tool locked behind the dealer door, the fault codes only we could clear, the whole structure that turned a $15 sensor into a $700 afternoon, and called it what it is, an illegal filing. This wasn't a blog post or a farmer's complaint. This was the government putting the accusation into the official record with named states standing behind it. And here is why that is your tool, not just a headline. Before this, when you argued with a dealer, you were one angry customer against a corporation and a lobby that had already signed a peace deal over your head. Now, there is a federal complaint on the public record, filed in 2025, that describes the restrictions you're living under as an unlawful scheme. When you sit across from that service desk, you are no longer the only one saying this is wrong. The Federal Trade Commission is saying it in court. That shifts the conversation from please help me to I know exactly what you're doing, and so does the government. Here's how you act on it this week. Look up whether your state has introduced or passed an agricultural right to repair bill, because after Colorado, more states are moving, and the FTC action is fuel on that fire. Call your dealer's service department and ask, on the record, for the diagnostic subscription, the electronic data link cable, and the technical manual for your specific machine, and write down what they say, because that paper trail matters now in a way it never did before. And find the independent repair advocacy groups, the Repair Association, and the consumer research groups who keep the running list of what tools are actually available for your model, because they've been keeping this knowledge alive the whole time the company was hoping it would die quietly. That's the hero's journey buried in this whole ugly story. The right to fix your own machine always existed. It was buried under a copyright law from 1998, hidden inside an implied license nobody read, and traded away in a memorandum signed in January of 2023. But a handful of stubborn farmers, a few reporters, and finally a federal agency in 2025 refused to let it stay buried. And now it's in your hands, sitting in your shop, with the law finally starting to catch up to what you always knew in your gut. You own it, all of it. The steel, the diesel, the seat, and the codes. I spent years on the wrong side of that service counter, writing invoices to people who thanked me for the privilege. I don't get those years back. But you get to walk into that dealership as a different person than the one who hauled his combine in on a Tuesday and said thank you for the bill. You get to be the owner again, not the licensee. If you've made it this far, you already know you're the kind of person who refuses to rent what you paid for in full. That's not stubbornness. That's the whole reason a family holds on to iron that outlives them. It was never about the brand. It was about the truth that a tool belongs to the hands that work it. So tell me one thing down in the comments, because I read them and I want to know how deep this goes. What's the worst repair invoice a dealer ever handed you for a problem you knew you could have fixed yourself in an afternoon? Name the machine, name the number, and tell me what state you're farming in, because I'm building a picture of just how wide this runs, and your story is evidence. Don't scroll past, leave it. Somebody reading it is about to feel a lot less alone, and if you're done being managed by a screen, come with me. This isn't a channel. It's a group of owners quietly taking their iron back, one cleared code and one honest repair at a time. Subscribe, because the next thing I'm pulling apart is the one most farmers get most wrong, the machine data your tractor is collecting on every acre you farm, where it goes, who's buying it, and how it's being used in ways that can come back on you at the worst possible moment. I saw where that data ends up. You're not going to believe who's holding it. I'll tell you everything, the same way I just did here, because you were never supposed to know any of this, and now you do. You just watch me walk through how that trap was built. Inside my membership, The Right to Repair, I pick up right where I stopped and hand you the full Farmer's Repair Playbook. Ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone here. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. It takes a minute, and you can cancel any time with one click. Now you might be wondering what farmers are actually doing about all this. Well, many are walking away from John Deere for a simpler, more honest option. I'll show you exactly why, right here. Let's take a look together.